Good morning. It is the 17th of February, 2022, a Thursday. This is Intercontinental Media, and I'm Peter Clark.
And I'm Brock Jennings. And for the first time in the better part of 6 years of doing something like this together, Peter, we have switched roles.
I know. At your encouragement.
At my encouragement, I just want to know if we freak anybody out when you do the intro.
Well, maybe we'll find out.
Yeah, let us know. Who should do the intro? Peter or me? Or should we alternate?
Ooh.
And Peter, you know me well enough. I don't like change.
I know.
So, that I willingly suggested that you take over the intro. That is a sign of my personal growth.
Indeed it is.
I would not let just anybody take over the intro.
That's right. Just like you shouldn't let anyone take over the role of custodian at the Overlook Hotel.
Oh, yes, indeed. We have met Jack Torrance this week.
We have.
And Peter, we are in much more of your territory than my territory. So, since you gave the intro, you tell us what you thought.
Oh my gosh, such tasty Steadicam work in that movie. The tracking shots, moving with and around people, the cinematography, the sound work, the pacing. I mean, there's a reason it's considered one of the greatest horror movies of all time.
Is it actually considered a horror movie?
Or suspense movie, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's considered one of the greatest movies of all time, period.
Well, I think it should be considered one of the greatest movies of all time just for the cinematography.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I'll meet you there. I didn't take any notes. Peter, the last 2 times we've done something... No, wait. This is only the first time. Never mind. This is the first time that I have not taken notes.
There you go. Just sat and took it in, soaked it up.
Yes, but I found myself trying to think, okay, now connect this to that and that to the... Blah, 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 blah. So, I got a ways to go yet. I'm not quite out of my note-taking mode.
That's all right. That's all right.
But you know what surprised me?
What?
Much of this film,
Mm-hmm.
the vast majority of it, is not filmed in Colorado.
No, it was mostly filmed in a soundstage.
In England.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting, but they must have done some exterior shots.
Oh, yeah. They did exterior shots and stuff like that, so...
But what about the exterior of the hotel? Where was that?
Where is that? That is a specific hotel in Yosemite. I think that's in California. I think that was in California.
So that wasn't even in Colorado. So, they tricked us the whole time. Because those establishing shots when they're driving up to the hotel in that very first scene, those helicopter camera shots, it's just beautiful.
That's in Glacier National Park, Montana.
How do you know all that?
Because I just looked it up on Wikipedia.
Oh, Lord. You're cheating. I never have Wikipedia up when we do this stuff.
Yeah.
You're looking at me like, that's totally your problem, not mine.
Right?
That was entirely the look you were giving me.
That was entirely the look I was giving you.
See, I know him so well. Okay, so they fooled me. They really fooled me, but they didn't fool you.
I mean, it's meant to look like Montana. That's fine. But I've visited that hotel in Yosemite, so I knew.
You mean it's meant to look like Colorado, not Montana?
Yeah, sorry, meant to look like Colorado. Yeah, but I've visited that hotel in Yosemite, so I knew where it was, and I just let myself suspend disbelief.
What does it mean to suspend disbelief when you watch a movie? Because I want to know 2 things. Number 1, how we do that, but number 2, if one has to do that when one watches The Shining.
Well, I mean, much like when one watches a play, one understands that there are certain things that are impossible, that are not true, and we just sort of go, okay, no, I'm just going to roll with it.
Yes, but is that necessary to watch a play? Do I or a movie? Let's
I
stick
think
with
so.
movies because let's stick with
Yeah.
movies because we're, that's the media we're looking at right now.
I think it's always is because I mean, there's you don't ever see anyone taking a poop or things like that in a movie, and that's not believable that they would go all that time without having to relieve themselves.
The one example you have to use calls back to your days with Martin Luther. Why, Peter? Why?
I love a good poop joke.
You and Luther would have gotten along well.
Both
Anyway,
musicians, both like poop jokes. Yeah, lovely.
wow. 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 Okay, then. Anyway, so you have to suspend disbelief. It's sort of like if you're watching a movie that, let's say, a horror movie that takes place in a high school.
Yeah.
But follow, just allow me to continue with my metaphor for a second.
Hmm.
But like in a high school that's locked, so mirroring the hotel where we're at. But let's say there are somehow classes going on, but you never see the students in class. You
Right.
just have to suspend your disbelief that, well, in real life they'd have homework, but right now they don't, or something.
Exactly.
And locked is not what I wanted. I wanted to say like a bottle episode of a TV show. Do you know what a bottle episode is?
Standalone episode.
No, it's. I believe when you call something a bottle episode, it means all your main actors are basically in one place the whole time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh,
So I said locked in the high school, but I really meant a bottle episode of something, a bottle episode of something in a high school, but there's no homework or teaching going on, or they're always
right.
talking at the lockers or eating
Right.
lunch, but nobody's actually doing any work.
Right. Right. Like the entirety of Saved by the Bell.
A show I've never seen, um, and have really no desire to see.
Fine.
Um, but maybe I could be convinced. So okay, one has to suspend one's disbelief to enjoy The Shining.
I mean, I think to really enjoy any movie. And there's more or less like if you don't know it's not Colorado, you don't necessarily have to suspend that much disbelief because it plays itself off as Colorado really well.
It does play itself off as Colorado really well, to the point where when I found out that a majority of it was filmed in England, I was I was like, really? I mean, I figured there were sound stages. That was no surprise for
Mm-hmm.
me, but
Mm-hmm.
the that they were in England, and I didn't even look at the location. I just assumed for the establishing shots, yeah, they're in Colorado. That looks like the Rocky Mountains to me. Um, and I didn't think anything more of it.
Well, that's something that Kubrick's really good at is using the camera to lie effectively.
And how exactly do you use a camera to lie effectively?
Well, so the Sierra Nevadas are not as big as the Rockies, but he shoots them at an angle that they look as big as the Rockies.
So it's all again about the cinematography. And my
Yeah.
suspicion is that with Kubrick in general, it's all about the cinematography.
Oh, absolutely. Storytelling via the camera. I mean, the most important storytelling in that movie happens without dialogue.
Tell us what some of the most important storytelling is. All the blood flowing down the
That's it.
hallways and
That's
such.
that's a huge one. Um, the you get the sheer sense of bigness and emptiness and loneliness just from the scenes of the kid rolling around in his big wheel.
Oh, I didn't get emptiness and loneliness from that. I got okay, maybe I did get emptiness and loneliness, but that's not what I thought I had. You just changed my memory.
Sorry.
Um, no, it's something else. I mean, I guess I would have said the vastness of the
Yeah.
space
Yeah. The
was
vastness. Yep.
was what I picked up on.
But you get the
Um,
emptiness from the reverberation when he goes over the linoleum floors and you get this huge then on the carpet.
mm, mm.
What?
Well, okay, but that doesn't require me to suspend my disbelief.
I'm
That
not
was
saying it does.
believable to me.
Yeah.
The only thing that I think would have required a suspension of disbelief, well, number one, if I was from Colorado, which I'm
Yeah.
not.
Right.
Um, Number two, if I'd ever been there, which I was only there when I was a very little child, like 4 years old, so don't remember.
Yeah.
Um, and so haven't been there, so don't need to suspend disbelief. And I thought I had a third one, but apparently I don't. So never mind. Those two
That's
are good.
okay.
I didn't have to suspend my disbelief for that stuff because it was
Yeah.
already so believable that I just assumed Kubrick flew a camera crew over to Colorado, shot the stuff that they needed, found some remote hotel out in that area, filmed it, and then did the rest on the sound stages.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the things that King doesn't like about the movie.
What?
Though he thinks Kubrick used the wrong hotel.
Well, not only, well, I mean, okay, I didn't hear that. I watched an interview with Stephen King. Can we bracket Stephen King for a second?
Yeah, we'll bracket Stephen King for a second.
Okay, but we'll come back to that. We
Yeah.
promise, viewers. We promise. We're going to get to Stephen King in a minute. But just these, I didn't need to suspend the disbelief there. The only way that I needed to suspend disbelief was the telepathy stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
But I've read Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, I'm probably one of the only people who's read Carrie but never seen the movie. Usually it's the other way around, but for me, I'm a very big fan of Stephen King, but we're still bracketing him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd read Carrie, so the telepathy, mind power stuff is not foreign to me from King.
Right.
But I'm risking getting into King, and I don't want to do that yet. So hold that.
Hold that.
But I had to in the movie. In the movie, I had to suspend disbelief a bit somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really the only. Well, no, that wasn't the only. I mean, all the blood coming down, and the girls that appear. I mean, I assume those girls that appear were from the family that was murdered.
That's
in
what
that
you're meant
hotel.
to assume too. But the other thing with Kubrick and some of that is maybe is the way he tells the story. Maybe you don't have to suspend disbelief. Maybe you can just assume everyone's going crazy.
Well, that was what I was actually about to say, believe it or not, before I changed my mind. You know how when you're thinking about saying something and then, like, in that little split second, you decide to say something else? That is literally what I was just doing, because I was thinking, well, maybe it would be just accurate to say, view this like everyone's going crazy.
Yeah.
Because clearly Jack is mentally ill.
Right. But is he the only one?
Well, no, Shelley Duvall's character, whatever that character's name is, he's or she's probably going nuts from the isolation, and Danny had already issues with his imaginary friend Tony.
Right.
By the way, what did you think? What did you think of Shelley Duvall's character? I found her annoying.
As Wendy? Yeah, she can be a little annoying.
Okay, good. Then I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks that, because I was sort of like, okay, yeah. I think it's her voice that I find annoying. Then again, some people probably find my voice annoying, so probably shouldn't go there. But in any case, I found her voice annoying, and I think it's because she's trying to fake an accent that she doesn't have in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure she performs that accent as well as she could. And so maybe that's why I found her annoying. But I thought the boy who played Danny was superb.
Oh, he's amazing.
And I heard that Kubrick was able to shoot all the stuff with him, like all the sequences with him, without him ever thinking he was in a horror movie or something.
Yeah.
Like that's really something. And that kid didn't stay acting, by the way. And he is from, in real life, he's from Tremont, Illinois, which is just outside of where I went to college at Bradley University in
There you
Peoria,
go.
Illinois.
There you go.
Small world.
Right.
And I gotta stand up for the Illinoisans here. Um, I, I moved to Germany and started my life over, and then started referring to myself as an Illinoisan. I don't know. I mean, whatever.
Whatever.
But the so what do you think of this notion of shining? You
Oh,
know,
the having the shine thing. I think it's interesting. Um I know that it's more fleshed out, not just in the book, but in other Stephen King novels than this.
uh, I don't know of any other King novel where he uses the term shining,
Not
unless
the
I.
term, but the ability is
Yeah,
implied in other.
the ability is Jake Chambers has the ability in the Dark Tower series. We're going back into King again.
How can you not? I mean, we're going to end up circling around to King. But
Mm.
I found it interesting. I think it was underutilized. um because it comes out to be just sort of this one. It ends up being, it goes from being a major plot point in the book, from what I understand anyway, to being basically a way to get a second snowcat up to the top of the mountain.
See, but I thought Shining was involved in how Danny could see the previous family who was murdered.
Then what is involved in how Jack sees the previous family that was murdered?
Well, who says Jack can't do the same? Well, who says Jack can't do the same thing?
I guess that's fair.
I mean, I don't think it's ever, at least in the movie. Now, I haven't read the book.
Oh, you
Right?
haven't? I thought you had.
No,
So neither
no,
of us have read the book.
no. See,
I've
I
read a
went.
plot summary, but that was it.
Uh, sounds. It's almost like in high school. Said I read the Spark Notes. um, I read Carrie, Salem's Lot, portions of Night Shift, and The Stand from that era of King's
Okay.
writings. So I didn't. I used to have first editions of every Stephen King book, including Carrie,
Right.
first edition, first print, and that of course included The Shining. I don't have any of that anymore, but I never did get to The Shining. I always wanted to,
Mhm.
but it just never. And see, my interest in my interest in King just lies elsewhere than some of that early stuff.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but anyway, we will spend probably the last portion of this episode on King. So let us leave him.
All right.
So what do you think are some weaknesses of this movie?
Weaknesses of this movie. I think the character of Dick Halloran is underdeveloped, but I'm not sure how you develop him more without making this a 3-hour movie.
Who is Dick Halloran? Is that the African American man who can also shine?
Yeah, he's the head
Yeah,
chef.
yeah, yeah. I liked his character though.
No, it was a great character.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I would agree. It is underdeveloped, and then it's like he just leaves, and I don't remember actually why he left the hotel,
well, he
but
left the hotel because all the staff leaves the hotel.
that's right. So, but they have to cook for themselves for 4 months.
Yep, 5 months.
Oh, jeez. And they just have to like hope that they have enough food. Although that storage room was
And they
big.
assure them that they have enough food. Yeah.
It's one thing to assure it. I mean, I eat a fair bit of food myself. I mean, I'm not sure, people have different amounts they eat.
Yeah.
So how does one know it's adequate for 5 whole months?
They claim it's adequate for over a year.
Yeah, well, it's like my laptop claims it has an 8-hour battery. Does it really?
Like
you
I
know,
say, you just have to trust that it does.
well, yeah, but let me tell you, when you're at 0% battery power and you don't have your charger with you, you don't have a laptop. And when you're at 0% food, you're not eating again.
Right. Yep.
So I missed that connection that he was leaving too. Although that
Yeah.
would make sense, or else how would they be alone? And how would Jack be speaking of isolation
Yep.
to write his book? Now, another lens for this story, I thought, was to look at it through Jack's alcoholism.
Hmm.
You just agree with me. You don't even challenge that.
No, I mean that's absolutely one of the lenses people look at it through. This is as with most Kubrick movies, there are many ways to look at this movie, and Kubrick himself often declined to comment on meanings and themes in his own movies, allowing the audience to interpret it.
Well, he's dead now, so his interpretation doesn't really matter.
Well, what I'm saying
Uh,
is he would agree with you that his interpretation doesn't really matter.
oh, well, he was a very postmodern movie director then.
He was.
He was a very postmodern movie director. Um, although I gotta tell you something, I am not a big Jack Nicholson fan.
No,
Well, I like him as the Joker in the 1989 Batman, but who doesn't?
he's very good at it. So he is coming into this movie hot off of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Which I've never seen and barely heard of.
Oh, I've seen parts of it. I don't know if I've seen all of it. I've
Well,
seen most of it.
on our never list of things to do for intercontinental media for this service that we do for all of you, well, hopefully it's a service and not an annoyance. Maybe we have to add that one to our list. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not a big Jack Nicholson fan. I saw him in As Good as It Gets. Yeah. He's good as the Joker. Maybe that's why when I say I'm not a Jack Nicholson fan, maybe really what I'm talking about is I have so identified him with the Joker since I was like 4
Right.
that anything else he does just doesn't interest me. I like
Well, and
it's like
I'm not a huge later Jack Nicholson fan. I mean, I'm not like, oh my God, Jack Nicholson is the greatest actor ever, but he doesn't turn me off. And I guess I'm more familiar with his earlier works.
and I'm gonna assume that Batman is in the middle.
Yeah. Batman is middle to late Jack Nicholson.
Did you like him in Batman?
Oh yeah, he was great in Batman.
Okay, good. We agree on that. Uh, but yeah, I just didn't. Maybe if I hadn't seen him there and was just seeing him in The Shining, maybe I'd have a more balanced perspective on him.
Well, one of the complaints of the casting was that Jack Nicholson was so associated with some from his previous movies playing mentally ill characters that it was easy to assume from the beginning that his character would snap.
Oh my gosh, and even the Joker is a mentally ill character. So
Yeah.
Jack
Yep.
Nicholson apparently plays mentally ill characters, which I did not know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought like he does the drop into insanity really, really well.
I know that's why Jack Nicholson plays mentally ill characters. It's because he does insanity very well.
Now, in the movie, when Jack Torrance is writing, all work and no play makes Jack a what is that?
Dull boy.
A dull boy. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So all this time that he's been working on this novel, right?
Mhm.
That's all he's been writing.
Yep.
It's not like he just went insane like 3 weeks ago and so he's written 200 pages of that in 3 weeks. That is literally the only thing he's done since he's been there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wasn't wrong about that then.
No.
So, but that implies that he had already snapped before he got there.
Or the foundation of the snap had been placed before he got there. Yeah.
And what if the foundation of the snap is when he comes home drunk and dislocates his son's arm?
That's entirely possible. I mean,
But
he
that,
identifies that as the beginning of his marital strife.
for good reason. I don't know why she didn't leave him.
Well, because you didn't just leave someone in the, what was it, 1980, 1970?
Carrie came out in 76, so
This is
it's going to be late
1980.
70s. Yeah.
1980.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a different world 40 years ago. Can you believe 1980 was 40 years ago?
Oh,
I
only
mean,
because I'm turning 38 this year.
you were born in
84.
84. Okay. I had to, my math wasn't working there. You know, me and math, we don't always get along.
Yep.
So do you think they did all the blood in the movie well?
Yeah, I think so. Do you not?
Well, I couldn't figure out, like, the river of blood starts when Danny has the vision when he's brushing his teeth before they go
Yeah.
to the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why that, like, if that was supposed to be a symbolic thing, or if I was supposed to think that there was literally this this river of blood rushing in. Does the blood symbolize a dam that has broken, which is giving Danny the knowledge of all the violence that has been done there?
It's giving him visions of things that he and his family will see at the Overlook Hotel, right? Because remember, later on, his mother sees that happen.
Okay, yes, but that was my other question. Is it really happening, or is she having a vision too?
Isn't that the question? Kubrick doesn't answer that question.
He doesn't answer that question, which I can't figure out why the blood is there.
Because all the murder that's happened at that hotel.
Yes, but why is she seeing it? Like I think there's more going on there than she seeing a gushing river of blood. I think she has the same intuitive psychic capacities as her son, and so she's intuiting this, but it's not happening like it could be captured on a video camera. In other words, I'm trying to think from the perspective of her character.
Right.
Obviously, it was captured on a video camera because it was filmed.
Yes.
But but I'm trying to think from the character's standpoint. I don't think they're seeing it like I'm seeing this water glass that I'm holding.
No, probably not.
So what's going on there then?
I don't know.
I mean, even and the woman in the bathtub, when Jack sees it's a young woman in the bathtub, and then she gets out of the bathtub. I said, "Oh wow, we clearly had to have one naked female in this movie, or it wouldn't be a horror movie." And
there are actually 3 naked women in that movie. 2 of them happen to be pictures.
I didn't notice the pictures, but
in Halloran's house, he has above his television. There's very prominently a naked black woman.
That's
and above
right.
his bed, there's very prominently a naked black woman.
That's right. I remember that. See, I thought that was a room in the hotel, though. I didn't realize
No, that's
that
his house. That was Halloran's house.
Okay.
In Miami, I want to say.
Oh, yeah, because that's what I couldn't figure out when I watched the movie. I said, why is he getting a news report in Colorado about Miami? But then I thought, well, maybe we're doing an environmentalism thing here, and we're talking about basically human colonization of the earth, right? Because we've already done the reference to the exploitation of the Native Americans who used to live on the land where the
Right.
Torrances are driving. So I'm
Right.
going, maybe there's a symbolic thing going on here. I didn't make the connection that he was actually in Miami.
Yeah, no, he winters in Miami.
Okay, so I missed that somehow, but apparently I was still lost on trying to get it clear with the visions. So, got to give me some time. When I take notes, I get distracted. When I don't take notes, I get distracted. So, I'm still learning
I
how to
think part
watch
of it's just you
movies.
think too hard.
You broke me.
I noticed.
What else am I supposed to do?
I don't know, just enjoy the movie, enjoy the cinematography.
I did enjoy the movie, but how am I supposed to talk about it on this show with you if I'm not thinking about it?
I didn't say don't think about it. I'm just saying you think too hard about it. It's a cool shot that they came up with, and they're like, man, that's a cool shot.
But it has to have a reason. Like, like, why put it in there? I mean, why subject my failing eyes to that shot if it doesn't have a purpose?
It represents you could represent a number of things. The murders that have happened in Hotel, the literal river of blood underneath the hotel from the Indian burial ground.
Maybe my problem is I like your last example in particular, by the way, because I like that
Yeah.
notion of what it means for white colonization of indigenous peoples in the U.S. I like that lens,
Right.
that hermeneutic, if I might
Yeah.
use that too big a
Yeah.
word. Um, Maybe my problem was I didn't actually suspend my disbelief,
Mm-hmm.
and
And I
I'm
mean,
not.
so we can to tie things back. One of the criticisms of the adaptation
Mm,
by King, to tie it back to King a little bit,
mm,
in the original book, the hotel is a character more,
right.
right? Right. It's the hotel itself
Mm.
is doing all of this to the Torrances.
Well,
And that's not as clear in the movie.
that to me, if Kubrick could have made that clear, that would have been the key for me to go, why are we seeing these shots? Because now it's less about the subjective visions of the characters, but the objective evil of the hotel and what it is doing to the characters that they subjectively experience.
Right. But Kubrick doesn't believe in the supernatural.
Well, you can't deal with Stephen King without the supernatural. You can't.
Right. And
It
that's
doesn't work.
King's complaint.
Now, I might, to borrow a phrase from one of my favorite theologians, Karl Rahner, I might call it a supernatural existential in
Mm-hmm.
King,
Mm-hmm.
because King doesn't believe any of the stuff he writes. King is not a literalist. It's all existential for him.
Right, but Kubrick so deeply doesn't believe in it that he very rarely brings it anything. This is the most supernatural of any Kubrick movie.
Well,
And it
if
still could be happening entirely in someone's mind.
well, okay, so now
He's
I understand. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
he's much more man versus self than man versus supernatural.
Okay, because I then and again I want to qualify that with a supernatural existential when we're talking about King.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have made things far clearer for me. And instead of needing to suspend my disbelief, I would have understood the existential things that were going on symbolized by the river of blood, instead of getting so lost and going, okay, that's a cool shot. Okay, that is legitimately a cool shot. This river blood just shoots down at you at the hallway. But, I know Stephen King's work pretty
Right.
well. Not in the last 5 years. I've lost a little bit of 4 years, lost a little bit of touch with it, like his newest stuff.
Hmm.
But apart from that, I know his corpus pretty well. You don't have a Stephen King book without blood. Like
Right.
he's got blood is symbolic for King, like it is in the Bible.
Right.
And so the fact that there was the river of blood didn't bother me. It's like, yeah, well, I'm watching a Stephen King film. Of course there's going to be blood. I expect that. And there's blood all over the place, and Carrie too. Well, I
Hmm.
don't know the movie. I only know the book. But I've seen the shot with Sissy Spacek and, all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I expected the blood to be there. The problem was I couldn't figure out why. And with King, there is always a why
And with
with
Kubrick, there
the
is
blood
not.
happening. I
Kubrick,
understand why Stephen King does not like this movie then.
Kubrick is much more, gives much more up to the interpretation of the audience. Kubrick is a lot less concerned with the why than the what.
But I don't think we should have a what without a why, or vice versa.
You see, but like again, because it's a philosophical thing, right?
Mm?
Um, in the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey,
Mm.
another Kubrick film, the computer kind of goes nuts and starts killing off the crew.
Mm.
And it's never explained why. Now, we find out, I'm trying to remember if it's explained why in the book either, because I've read the book too. I think it's a little more explanation of why in the book. It's made much more explicit in later books and later movies, neither of which have anything to do with Kubrick. Um, but but in 2001, A Space Odyssey, you just have to accept that something has happened to cause the computer to go crazy, and we're just dealing with that fact.
Well, I don't necessarily need that. For me is different. A computer going crazy or haywire in a science fiction film, I wouldn't need every I dotted and T crossed. That's existential absurdism
Okay.
for me.
Yeah.
But my problem with the blood and with the notion of shining, in Kubrick's interpretation, he tries to keep these supernatural elements somehow without letting them be supernatural.
Right.
And so the question is, why are they there? They serve no purpose than to confuse people like me who say, if you're going to have it, but at least don't leave me asking, why is that there? That is out of place with everything else you're doing in the story.
And again, with Kubrick, I would almost say he has it in there exactly to do that, to make you ask, why is that there?
But that's just irrational. Like I'm fine with transcending reason. I'm
Okay.
fine with that. I have no problem with that. I don't think, by the way, I don't think you can do theology without doing that somehow. So, and I'm not sure you can do good philosophy without it either. But so transcending reason is okay with me. But if you put it there just to shock me, or just to make me say, now why did he do that there? It is distracting me from the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
right after you have already established that this kid can shine. Like,
Mhm.
those two elements make no sense. The rest of the story could just be Jack Torrance going insane from isolation and alcoholism that he never dealt with before, and it bit him in the you know where right before he was about to die.
Mhm.
Am I making sense?
A little bit.
A little bit, but you disagree with me.
I mean, I don't need Kubrick to make that much sense.
What is it then if it's not?
I mean, Kubrick is a very postmodern filmmaker. Like
But
if you watch 2001 A Space Odyssey is functionally three movies.
oh god. All right.
All
Well,
right,
that's
the first movie is establishing finding the monolith
mm,
on the moon, and then establishing that we're creating a mission to Jupiter.
hmm
The second third is the mission to Jupiter and everything that goes wrong there.
mm.
The final third, I can't explain with words. The main
Okay.
character ascends to something like godhood.
Okay. That movie sounds much more interesting to me.
Oh, it's massively interesting. It's great.
I,
It's visually stunning, philosophically inscrutable, and just
so why is that postmodern and not highly existential? Or is existentialism a part of postmodernism?
one could make that argument that existentialism is part of postmodernism. Well, one could make the argument that it isn't. I don't know.
So why would you call The Shining a postmodern film?
I think so.
Why?
Um, because how you interpret The Shining has to do with the meta narrative of how you view the world. There are a number of interpretations of The Shining. A number of interpretations have been made. Some say, it's about the impact of colonialism and the theft of native land and the ultimate impact of that.
That was sort of the argument I was making.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's definitely an argument people make. Some people say that. Let me go look this up. I want to get this right because I don't want to reference this and get it wrong.
And this, viewers, is called checking the sources.
Yes, it's important. That there are underlying references through that indirectly to the Holocaust.
Wow. How would that be the Holocaust, though? I don't get the.
I don't know a lot about that particular theory of it, but I know that it's out there.
Was Jack Torrance Jewish?
I don't know, but we do know that Stanley Kubrick was deeply moved by and impacted by the Holocaust. His entire life he wanted to make a movie about the Holocaust, but he could quite find the right script or the right setting for it.
Boy, trying to read it like that would be. I wouldn't. I don't know how someone would get that from the text, so to speak. And I'm thinking of text now in a very Derridian sense. That more than just books. In the sense of deconstructive film analysis.
Right.
I don't know how one would get that from the film. I mean, that would be very interesting. But I
Yeah, I
still
mean,
don't.
I mean, some people, a lot of people say that stuff's excessively speculative, but I just wanted to note that it's out there.
Now, here's something for you.
Yeah,
Here's where I can get behind the blood, the
yeah,
river of blood. The river of blood is a symbol for the colonization of the land of Native Americans by the white settlers. That I
yeah.
can get behind.
There you go. There's your
That
reason
I'm
for the
there.
River of Blood.
Can't understand why we have The Shining going on, though.
No.
I don't understand what role The Shining plays then.
Well, the role of The Shining is it's part of the bones of the story. So Kubrick takes King's story, strips it down to the skeleton, and puts new muscle and skin on it.
I can understand why King doesn't like this movie.
Yeah.
I don't think, I haven't read the book, so I got to be careful, but it doesn't seem to me that he does King justice based on what I know of King. I would not be asking why the Shining ability is there in King's novel, nor would I be asking if there is, in fact, a river of blood like that, why there's a river of blood there. I already would understand what he was doing. And it wouldn't be like, oh, well, this is just something for shock effect. Because frankly, what I worry about when things like this get done, when we start saying, well, we do it just to make us ask questions, or we do it for the shock value, or blah blah blah, we're as reasonable as Donald Trump at that point.
Yeah.
And I just, that worries me. I want a little more grounding. Give me art, give me good art, but have a reason behind it.
Yeah. Well, and
Make,
so here I'm pulling up the original movie poster,
mm-hmm.
and it's The Shining, a Stanley Kubrick film.
Yeah, clearly.
Starring da 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 da, based on the novel by like Stephen King gets like third-rate billing.
Right, right.
On the movie poster.
Now, I watched an interview with King about The Shining. Now we'll switch to King officially.
Yeah.
I watched an interview with King on The Shining, and he said, "Don't get me wrong, I love everything else the man did, just not that one." And one of the reasons that he doesn't like it is the ending. His basically what he said was, "My novel is a warm novel, and Kubrick's film is a cold film."
Yeah.
At the end of the novel, the hotel burns. In the movie, it freezes.
Mm-hmm.
But even it's not clear to me if the hotel is a character. And here's the other thing that I didn't get. In the very ending of the movie, you see Jack in a photo from 1921.
Yep.
Well, what? Oh, are we doing reincarnation now? Are we reincarnating the evil that has taken place here?
Has Jack gotten trapped there? I mean, remember the previous caretaker says, "I've always been here. You've always been the caretaker."
Then it's supernatural again.
I mean, Kubrick leaves in the possibility for the supernatural without emphasizing it.
Why did he detest the supernatural so much?
I don't know the details of that, but it's just Kubrick is not a person who's into the supernatural.
Well, that's fine. He doesn't need to be. But I just think and notice I was saying supernatural existential.
Right.
None of this for King is literal. I mean, I don't think the quote-unquote supernatural elements in J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings are literal.
Right.
This is highly symbolic writing. I mean, maybe I'm just too modern. I don't know. I used to think I was postmodern. I was pretty sure I was postmodern, but I'm not sure I believe that anymore. I think I'm a modern rationalist who pretends like he's not. Is really what's going on. And so when I look at films like this, I'm always having to think symbolically. I mean, the only way I can handle Harry Potter, frankly,
Hmm.
is by deconstructing the magic and looking at it existentially. I can't, for me, it doesn't work to have, you got to believe this magical world, and they walk through
A wall.
a wall, right, to get to platform 9 3/4, and they zoom off to this place and nobody ever found it. And no, it's just not. Come on, the world doesn't work like that.
But what if it could, Brock?
Well, it's a what if question. I'm a historian. Uh, oh my God, I cannot believe those words just came out of my mouth. Oh my God. Okay, in my defense, I did study history for my undergraduate degree. Perhaps that is coming through at the moment. And even in music, what interested in me was music history. Even though I'm not, I didn't go on in that exact subject. That sort of rootedness of a
Hmm.
world view
Hmm.
still got me. I mean, what if it could? Why in the world would I ask that question? What if the world could have dragons? And just to use the Harry Potter reference again,
Yeah.
dragons and Grindylows and big old gigantic spiders that are loyal to this one guy who takes care of all these crazy animals, and I'm supposed
Yeah.
to believe that?
Wouldn't that be cool?
No, I don't want to live in a world like that. I want to live in a world where what I see is what I get. I have my little stuffed cat on my desk here. His name is Johannes. I know he sits on my desk. I look at him. I see him. There we go. Now, on an existential level, now we can talk about what would the world be like if there were these people and there was this struggle manifested in good and evil and so on and so forth, and the beauty behind it, the poetic beauty behind it. I think Joe Rowling, even though I'm mad at her, like
Oh,
these
I know.
last few years, but I think Joe Rowling is a brilliant writer in this regard. Um, and I can see all that symbolically and all that, but I have to start with this ain't literal. No way. No way, no how. Why are you smirking at me?
I don't know. I think there, while there's a lot of symbolism in King, there's also a lot um of the this is it would be scarier if you suspended your disbelief and believed in the supernatural for a minute.
I never said I denied the supernatural. I'm the one sitting here talking about the supernatural existential and the need to transcend reason.
Right.
I'm not denying transcendence at all.
Okay.
Not for 1 minute. I am critiquing the literalizing of the symbolic elements of stories. It would be like, pardon me, since you and I have both read and seen the movie,
Hmm.
literalizing Pennywise. Pennywise is not scary as certainly not in the movie. Um, in the book, it's terrifying.
Hmm.
When in the book they say, "Oh my God, it's female and she's pregnant," and Pennywise is this big old black widow spider, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets even more terrifying because you're behind the evil of the spider. Behind that is the last level that cannot even be depicted. Even King, with his brilliant with his brilliant literary description, can't fully depict the deadlights.
Hmm.
And that's what Pennywise actually is. That is one of the most terrifying things I've ever read. It's evil.
Yeah.
Pure evil.
Almost as evil as the size of that novel.
It was only 1,000 pages.
I would never have read it if it weren't for the invention of the Kindle.
I thought you were going to say you would have never read it if it wasn't for me.
Well, that too. But I might have gotten around to it. Someone else might have convinced me, but not without the invention of the Kindle. There's no way I'm
I used to have the
giant book.
Oh my god, the hardcover was great. Proper tire up with it. It's like the uncut edition of The Stand. There are 2 editions of The Stand with King, and you got to read the uncut edition. Get the hardcover original first edition of the uncut version. It's 1,200 pages of goodness. You can proper tire up with that thing.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, it was so good. I didn't want it to end. I was ready for another 300 pages. And King sucks at endings anyway, so he probably should have written 300 more pages and just never stopped.
the literary equivalent of the musical fade out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Print just gets smaller and smaller until it's illegible.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, but I didn't. Did you read it and say, oh my God, what would it be like if this could happen?
Yeah.
You seriously read it like that?
I read it, and my first thought was not, oh my God, what does this symbolize? My first thought was, oh my God, that's terrifying. Wouldn't it be scary if that was real?
I think my first thought may have been the following. Oh my God, this is terrifying. What does it symbolize?
Yeah, I don't go straight into the symbolism.
Yeah, but you never say just a symbol. A symbol participates in the reality it signifies.
I didn't say just a symbol. I just said I don't go straight into the symbolism.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, what? So you really said, what would this be like if? What would this be like if this could actually happen?
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's part of the terror of the book to me.
I think for me, the terror of the book is King's incredible insightfulness into the nature of evil. And not only that, but his equally incredible insightfulness of what it means to be marked with a trauma and to heal from it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, the man's a genius. We should give him an honorary doctorate in literature tomorrow.
He probably has several.
Sadly, he doesn't.
Oh, interesting.
He's not well respected by the Academy yet.
Oh.
He's getting there. He's getting there, but he's not there. Tolkien, I think, is there.
Well, Tolkien started in the Academy.
Yeah, but Lord of the Rings is not an academic book.
No,
Lord of the Rings is a novel written by an academic.
Before Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, Tolkien was known for his monogram on Beowulf.
Oh, I should
actually
read that.
One of the only reasons that we read Beowulf today is because of Tolkien's monogram on Beowulf.
Oh, well.
Monograph, not monogram. Sorry.
Yeah. that would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, no, his monograph on Beowulf. It's entirely approachable. It's very readable. It's very good.
Have you you've read it?
Yeah.
Did you read it in Latin?
No, because he didn't write it in Latin.
But you would have if he had written it in Latin.
At the time, yes, because at the time I read it, I was still fairly fluent in Latin.
I love that about you. Okay, so Tolkien, but I'm saying Tolkien is respected in the Academy now for Lord of the Rings. You see the difference I'm drawing?
Right, but what I'm saying though is that Tolkien was respected in the Academy. Full stop. So when he wrote Lord of the Rings, the Academy took notice.
That's interesting. Is there then a parallel with C.S. Lewis because he was an academic too?
Yes, exactly.
See, King is not an academic.
No, and the Academy is very insular.
You half broke me again, but not as badly.
What was that, 3 times now this episode?
2.
Okay, two breakings and one existential crisis.
No, the existential crisis was the breaking.
No, because you freaked out when you called yourself a historian.
Oh, you're right. Oh my gosh. You're right. You're right. I've had 2 existential crises and one. No, wait. I've had 2 breakdowns.
Yeah.
And 1 existential crisis. Oh God, it's gonna be a night. Yeah. All right. I'll go with you there. The Academy is insular, but King is slowly making his way into academic respectability, and I do say slowly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to take 50 years. First of all, he's going to have to be dead.
Oh, absolutely.
Second of all, every academic writer, and I mean writer literally, is jealous of him because he's made so many millions of dollars and sold so many hundreds of millions of books, and yeah, it's going to take time. And third, although he has a degree in English, it is quote unquote just a bachelor's degree.
Right.
But he has the intellect of somebody who could be teaching English at the University of Maine at Orono, which is his alma mater.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the intellect to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
And his books, even when he was strung out on cocaine, oh, by the way, and he writes The Shining, it's his own struggle with alcohol coming through there.
Oh, absolutely.
Which also I think the movie could have emphasized more, not King's struggle, but the character's struggle.
Right.
I just lost my thread. Help me find my thread, Peter.
I don't know.
What did I do? Yeah, he's got the intellect of somebody who could be in the Academy if he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But the Academy won't take notice of him. And I know this because you may remember this. 5 years ago, I wanted to do my doctorate in English on Stephen King.
Yeah, I remember that.
I wanted to write my dissertation on him.
Yeah.
And I got laughed at by somebody from Berkeley. There was a very nice professor from Washington University in St. Louis that has a great English program that said, I do not think this is fair, and I like him, and I don't think it should be this way, and I read him. But King is not canonical.
No.
And that was what I was getting over and over. I could have done a master's from King's very alma mater, University of Maine. But, what was I going to do with yet another master's degree? I'm sorry to say it that way, but that's really what was happening.
Yeah.
And so I gave it up, but I wanted to put Stephen King in dialogue with Paul Tillich. And so what I did was I wrote an article on it. And turned it into a teaching case study and put the first book of King's Dark Tower series, in dialogue with Paul Tillich's existentialism as a way to teach systematic theology to seminary students using popular literature.
There you go.
And I still sort of got the last laugh because the journal I sent it to, which is one of the Lutheran journals, the editor told me, never had an article like this one before, so that's new under the sun. And I had a great time doing it. And but I don't think it's fair that King is not being recognized as a worthy intellectual source of engagement, because he's such an existentialist writer.
Right.
And he's just a genius, and I don't know what's taken these English departments so long, but they haven't caught up with him. That's the problem. The Academy has not caught up with Stephen King. But here's the thing. The Academy, meaning now in a microcosm of English departments, hasn't, but the Academy, in terms of film studies, has caught up because film studies would study The Shining.
Right.
So what's going on here?
Sorry, go back one more time. I got distracted.
Okay. You'll fix
You wish
this
the
in the
Academy
editing
would
room.
study it the way film studies does.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Because film studies, film studies would study The Shining.
Oh, film studies
Question.
does study The Shining. I studied it. I had to watch it in undergrad.
Yeah, exactly. But the book, oh well, that's just a trashy horror novel. No. Have you read it? Oh, and this is what really irritates me about the Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Dickens is considered great literature. Dickens was the Stephen King of the 19th century.
Yeah.
His books were sold a dime a dozen. They came out in these little paper pamphlets. It's
Yep.
just like when King wrote Green Mile. He was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, he's humble enough to say, well, I don't think I'm Dickens. You know, he backs off of that one.
Right.
But I think it's accurate. In the 19th century, no one would have been saying that Dickens was this brilliant classic of literature and we need to study him. And now you've got a man. Most popular writers are not worth their salt in my estimation. I can't stand the books. You know, at that point, you're just reading it to flip pages.
Yes.
But he's different. And I'm not saying every book of his is great. I'm not saying that at all. There some of his stuff I haven't liked as much. Some of the shorter stories that I read I didn't like as much.
Well, I will tell you that Kubrick had great respect for King.
That I remember, yes. If he had great respect, though, why didn't he honor the work?
I think Kubrick honored it as best as Kubrick could. There's
Maybe
still an ego in there.
For
you know
Kubrick,
what I mean?
you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we need to wrap it up. But I want to end this with one story that I just found. So Kubrick's secretary had brought him. He had his staff bring him stacks of horror books because he wanted to direct a horror movie. And his secretary would hear the sound of books hitting the wall as he flung it into a reject pile after reading the first few pages. Until one day she noticed that she hadn't heard that noise in a while. And she walked in to find him engrossed in The Shining.
I like that. And the other side of that story is when King found out that Kubrick wanted to adopt the movie, or adopt the book into a movie, he was shaving. And then as he tells the story, it was, you know, he cut himself shaving because Stanley Kubrick is on the phone.
Right.
So there was a mutual respect for those from those two for each other. But and I haven't even read the book, but I can speak as someone who has read a lot of King's corpus. Obviously, I haven't read it all. I'm not sure anybody can read it all. I mean, it's like reading all of Thomas Aquinas or something. I mean, you just can't do it. Yes, I just compared Stephen King to Thomas Aquinas. No, I don't care. Do not.
I mean, in terms of proliferation, that might be fair.
In terms of proliferation, yeah. Although if I were to compare them to, yeah, they're both academic enough. But anyway, the point being, I'm not sure anybody can read everything that King has written.
Right.
But I have read a lot of it, and probably will after I'm done with the doctorate. I presume I'll go back to him. And maybe, I mean, The Dark Tower is just. I don't have words for what The Dark Tower is. That is a magnum opus, at least on the scale of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, at least. At least. And so but I've always been, and you know this about me, I have always been, since you and I met, and actually before you and I met, skeptical about Hollywood or any kind of film adaptation of King's work. Always.
I know. Yep.
And this time I said, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it because I haven't read the book anyway. So I don't have this problem. And I don't know if I loathe this movie because I love it or if I love this movie because I loathe it. I can't decide. And I find myself in this wanting to be in the same place that I have been for 7-8 years, but also wanting to move beyond that, right? Not getting so stuck in the author, meaning King.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what to do with this movie, Peter.
Well, let's sit in that uncertainty. And
All right.
what are we going to be watching next?
Next, we are watching Alien.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's going to be fun.
So,
Cool. Well, until next time, I'm Peter Clark.
and I'm Brach Jennings.
And this has been Intercontinental Media.
If you're not good enough for Beverly, you're not good enough for anything.